Today we're going to learn Shabbat Daf Kufhei. Today's shiur is dedicated by Ricky Gerger in honor of Orly Halpern, an 11-year-old girl in Tacoma Park, Maryland, who's recovering from a liver transplant, and she is the bravest person that she knows. We'll start right now with the very bottom of Daf Kuf Dalet Amud Bet. There's a bunch of things today. This happens kind of often. I just want to point out that there's lots of times where there's issues with sugyot in the Gemara that are very unclear, and there's many different interpretations, and it's hard to know exactly what the pshat is. So today you might be left with a few more questions than answers. Whenever there's a lot of different options, that means there's some struggles here with what exactly the reality is, what they're talking about. Sometimes it's an issue that they don't understand the reality. We're going to get to later with exactly how the weaving loom worked and what the different parts were. There were different explanations of that. And part of it is just not even because they didn't know the reality, but the first thing we're going to start with is something that's not exactly so clear-cut. If you remember in the Mishnah, I talked about that if you write, we talked about that letter chet, that it had a little roof in the middle, they call it, and if you split the chet into two, you'd end up with two letters. So if you intended to write just one letter, the chet, and it came out as two, you'd be exempt. However, the Gemara is now going to bring a braita that says exactly the opposite. And we understood there, that, and this is why I'm going to say it's going to be confusing, the issue is because you didn't intend to write two letters. It all goes by your intent. However, the Gemara here says something very different. They bring a braita that says, "Nitkaven lechtov ot echad va'alu biyado shtayim." In the end, you tried to write one. In the end, it came out as two. And Rashi even says, like the chet, and it came out as two zayins, chayav, you're obligated, which goes exactly against the Mishnah. So the Gemara says, "V'hatznam patur." Doesn't it say you're exempt in the Mishnah? The Gemara answers lo kasha. Ha debai ziyune, ha de lo bai ziyune. What is the ziyune exactly? A lot of different interpretations. Could be it means whether, some people say it means whether it needs to have the ziyunim are the ktarim, the crowns at the top of the letters. Some of the letters in the Sefer Torah need to have those crowns at the top. We saw them yesterday. So the zayin is supposed to have crowns. So if we're going to say one case when we said you're chayav is a case where it didn't need crowns, and therefore as soon as you take that chet, you tried to make a chet, it came out with a space in between, so you ended up with two zayins. Since they don't need the crowns, okay, let's say you're not writing it in a Sefer Torah, then you wouldn't need a crown. If you don't need crowns, you're going to be obligated. If you're writing it in a Sefer Torah and you need the crowns, then you're not obligated because it's not actually a full zayin. Now, what's the problem with saying this? This is totally against what we were talking about. We thought the whole issue had to do with, do you have intent or not? What was your intent to write two letters? And since you didn't intend to write two letters, therefore, you shouldn't be obligated. And yet here it seems to say you are. And it doesn't really address this at all. Some of the commentaries address it and they say this must be a case. And then again, it takes it away from what we thought this was talking about. It must be a case where you didn't really care what letters you were writing. You could say something is a creative act without any intent. Can't be a creative act if you had a different intent. But if you really didn't care, you were just writing and you didn't really care what letters came out, then this would be a case where you'd be obligated for writing these two letters when, now, obviously, what's the problem? It says, nitkaven lechtov ot echad, and that's why I said we're going to be left here with more questions than answers, because it sounds like you actually had intent to write one letter. But they kind of say, no, you really didn't have any particular intent at all. Okay, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. If the whole thing has to do with intent, it can't possibly be you'd be obligated. So again, one says it has to do with, did it need the crowns? Did it not need the crowns? Some people say it's, did you intend to write crowns or did you not intend to write crowns? And that there we bring the issue of intent back in, but the intent had to do not with one letter versus two letters, but had to do with, did you intend to make a crown or not? It's clearly here you didn't make any crowns. The question is, was there intent? There's a bunch of other explanations about it, but again, the shot of this is very difficult because it seemed to be talking about intent to write one letter and you wrote two, and it doesn't really seem like that's what they think in the end is the issue. Next line, Katav ot echad notrikon, we saw this in the Mishnah, if you write an abbreviation. So, Rabbi Yeshua ben Betera mechayev, chachamim potrim. There's a debate, are you obligated or not? Right? Do we view this one letter abbreviation as more? Right? Then we talked about that there was a debate, what if you wrote a two-letter abbreviation, since it's not a full word, maybe also you wouldn't be obligated according to the rabbis. Either which way you look at it, we see that abbreviations, at least according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Betera, are considered significant. So the Gemara wants to say, Amar Rabbi Yochanan mishum Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra, minayin lelashon notrikon min haTorah. How do we know that there's such a thing of abbreviations in the Torah? And now we're going to show that in the Torah itself, there were all sorts of abbreviations. Shneamar, ki av hamon goyim netaticha. Okay, this is interesting because it's in a verse where it talks about why when God called Abraham, instead of Avram, he called him Abraham. He did. Now, notrikon means two things. Okay, notrikon here means abbreviation, like Rashi Tevot in Hebrew. Notrikon also means that this word means more than what it says, kind of thing. So Avraham is Av Hamon Goyim Netaticha. It's kind of a reference to something more. What's interesting about this is that was an abbreviated version of Av Hamon Goyim Netaticha. And now we're going to learn that Av Hamon Goyim Netaticha is also an abbreviation for something even more than that. That's why it's a kind of funny one, because it itself is the translation of the abbreviation or the extended version, and that in and of itself is an abbreviation. So how does this work? Ki Av Hamon Goyim Netaticha. We're now going to darshan Av and Hamon. So Av is Aleph Bet. So Av Netaticha Laumot. You're going to be a father for all the other nations. That's the Aleph. The Bet is Bachor Netaticha Baumot. You're going to be the chosen one among the nations. Then Hamon has Hey, Mem, Vav, Nun. We're going to darshan those four letters. Hamon, which Hey and Chet often switch. Chaviv Netaticha Baumot. You're going to be beloved among the other nations. Mem, Melech Netaticha Laumot. You're going to be king over the other nations. Vav, Vatik Netaticha, your Baumot. You're going to be a vet, right? A Vatik, old, how do you say it? Someone with a lot of experience. Ne'eman Netaticha Laumot. You're going to be trustworthy among all the other nations, loyal. And that's the drasha of Av Hamon Goyim. All these things about what Avram's going to be among the other nations. Rabbi Yochanan Didei Amar. Second, we're going to have, I think, 5 examples of notrikon. Anochi. Oh, by the way, there's a sheet for today. Okay, if somebody put it up, I wasn't looking. Yes, someone put it up. Thank you. Anochi. Here's an interesting notrikon. Okay, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Why are we saying it's a notrikon? It's an abbreviation because it could have simply said. We're talking out in the luchot. It could have said Ani Hashem Elokecha. I'm God who took you out of Mitzrayim. You shouldn't have other gods. So now they say Anochi must be standing for something. So we're going to have 3 interpretations. Ana nafshi ktivat yahavit. I myself, God is saying, right? Ana nafshi, Aleph Nun, ktiva yahavit. I myself wrote it, and I myself am giving it to you, right? This is saying, this comes directly from God. Rabbanit Amre, because notice it's the first word in the 10 Commandments. So basically it's God's way of saying, the first word is saying more than what it's saying, which is, I'm the one who gave you all this, and I wrote it, and I'm giving it to you directly. Rabbanit Amre, a different explanation is, Amiran mi'ima ktiva yahiva. What I'm giving you that's written and given to you is in Amiran mi'ima. It's a pleasant, it's talking about not how it was given or who wrote it. It's talking about what the content is. The content is na'ima. Here's an interesting one. Ika da'amre, and I think it connects with something we learned yesterday. If you remember, we learned that the luchot were written, they were engraved all the way through, so you could read it backwards, theoretically. If you read it from the back side, you would see it in the reverse. And that's why I think, I don't know, but I think there's a connection here. Now they're going to darshan and notrikon in the reverse order. Ika da'amre, anochi lemafreya. We read it reverse, not Aleph Nun Chaf Yud, but Yud Chaf Nun Aleph. Yehiva ktiva ne'emanim emareha. It was given to you written, and its words are loyal. Okay. I'm not sure so much content-wise what the difference is, but they darshan it that we read it the other way. Debei Rabbi Natan Amri. Third notrikon in the Torah, ki yarat haderech lenegdi. This is about Bil'am when he comes across the donkey, right? The donkey stops him in the way, and then the malach comes, and the malach speaks. The angel speaks and says, the malach says, why did you hit your donkey 3 times? Seems to be talking specifically about Bil'am, but they darshan this to say, it's talking specifically about the donkey. What does it mean, yarat? Yir'ah. First, he was fearful. Then ra'ata, then he saw the angel in his way, and then natita, and then he turned away. Debei Rabbi Ishmael Tana, a 4th notrikon, Carmel. This is about what you bring for the Minchata Omer. It's supposed to be Geras Carmel. This is for the Omer offering that we bring after Pesach. Kar male. What is karmel? It's when you're supposed to bring the barley. It's when there's still there. It's like a full pillow. What's a pillow? Well, the grain is inside its casing, right? The shibolet. It's inside there when it's full. Basically, mean when it's still moist, then it's full. It's kind of like fluffed up. That's what karmel is. Kar male, a fluffed up pillow, a full pillow. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Amar, v'hu kilelani klala nimretzet. Now we get to David HaMelech. He was cursed by Shimi ben Gera, if you remember, and he says he cursed me a curse nimretzet. So how did they darshan nimretzet? No trikon. What did he curse him by? He said, no efu, you're an adulterer because of Bathsheba. Moavihu, you're a Moabite, because you came from Ruth, or from, right, Rotzeahu, okay, so you're a murderer. Why? Because of Uriah Hittite that you killed. Sorerhu, okay, this is maybe because you're a Moabite, so you're an oppressor. Toevahi, you're despicable. That's how he cursed him. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, man nedaber uman nitztadak. This is when Yehuda comes, when after they find in Yosef, the Yosef story, when he goes to plead before Yosef, please let us go and don't keep Binyamin. So he says, man nedaber uman nitztadak. What can we say and how can we be good in your eyes, righteous in your eyes? So now we're going to say, what is nitztadak? Nichonim. So all those letters stand for something. Nichonim anachnu, we're correct. Or maybe we're ready. Tzadikim anachnu, we're tzadikim, we're righteous people. Tehorim, we're pure. Dakim, dakim is another word for purity, even more pure than pure. Kedoshim anachnu, we're sanctified, we're holy. Okay, and that was all of the examples of no trikon in the Torah. Now we're going to have the last Mishnah before we finish the issue of kotev. HaKotev shtei otiot b'shtei halamot. If you write two letters, but in the middle you found out that you did something wrong after you did one letter, right? You realize, oh, it was Shabbat, or I can't write. And then, again, you write the second letter. We made reference to this machloket before. Achat shacharit ve'achat bein arbaim. These next words are very problematic. Rashi explains that they mean, or you wrote one letter in the morning and one letter in the afternoon, even if you didn't have any sort of knowledge in the middle. You didn't know it was Shabbat. Now, why is this difficult? Because generally, we say ha'elem echad. The pshat of ha'elem echad sounds like in one doing, let's say. But it's not actually true. When we talk about ha'elem echad, it could be, it was a few days later, you did the same sin and you still didn't know it was forbidden. That would all be called ha'elem echad. So Rashi's explanation that we mean one in the morning, one in the afternoon, even without having any sort of knowledge in the middle, seems kind of difficult because it shouldn't really make a difference. What Rashi seems to say is that since Rashi says, Kevan da havele shehut b'intayim kidei leda, havele kishtei alamot. Since there was enough time that you could have found out, it's as if you found out. Now that's very difficult, and Tosfot says, I don't know what you're talking about, that's not the case. And Tosfot uses not as two different cases, but as one and the same. Tosfot says it means if you wrote two letters with two halamot, for example, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and in the interim, somebody told you what you did was wrong, then Rabban Gamliel mechayev hachachamim potrim. So then we have a debate, are you obligated or you're not obligated? Now, what's the debate? Generally, halamot split up your actions, okay? But, b'mai kamiflagei, Rabban Gamliel savar ein yediah lechatzi shiur, v'Rabbanan savre yesh yediah lechatzi shiur. This is something we learned already, which is there Yidi'ah for Chatzi Shiur, meaning, do we say that if you found out about something you did wrong, but it wasn't actually a whole act of doing something wrong because it was only one letter you wrote, is that considered a Yidi'ah or not? Meaning, does it split up these two single letters that you wrote? So according to the rabbis, it's significant. Therefore, we split those two actions that you did, and therefore you're not obligated at all because each time you only wrote one letter. According to Rabban Gamliel, and we saw this before, ein yediah lechatzi shiur, it's as if you didn't have anything in the middle, and therefore you'd be obligated for writing both letters. Obviously, what happened here, just to make it clear, you found out in the middle, but then you already forgot by the time you did the second letter that you wrote, you forgot. Okay, again, I don't know how bad your memory is, but somehow you forgot again. Okay, if you didn't forget the second time, then obviously no one thinks you're obligated. Hadron ala chabona, and now we're moving on to weaving. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. There's a basic machloka between Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis about how much you have to weave in order to be obligated. Again, we're getting into the requisite amount for being obligated for the different melachot. Ha'orek shlosha chutim b'tchila. Ve'echad ha'arig chayav. Depends, he said, on whether you're starting out. If you're starting out, then it's going to be 3 threads of weaving. If you don't remember, the weaving part is after you set up all, let's say before Shabbat, you set up all the strands of the woof, and then you take your buchiar, we called it the other day, your shuttle, and you put it through with your, the other direction going through, and you weave. That's called the oreg part, okay, where you put in the weft string in the other direction. So if you do 3 strands like that, then that's what's important in the beginning, because if you don't yet put it up in the beginning, then you're basically not going to be able to, that's not going to be significant. Less than 3 is not a significant number when you're starting out. But if already you had some strands woven, then even just adding 1 is already significant, because once it's already done, then adding 1 more, and it's not finished, it's in the middle, but once you already have 3 strands, it's already significant enough. So if you add just 1 more, that already is significant. The Chachamim omrim, they go to the standard, bein b'tchila, bein b'sof, shiuro shnei chutin. Whether you're in the beginning or whether you're at the end, they don't actually mean at the end here, because if you were at the end, you did 1 string and you finished the cloth, you'd obviously be obligated because of makeh patish, finishing it. What they mean here is whether in the beginning or whether in the middle, once it's got a few strings already, then it doesn't make a difference. No matter what, it's 2. Weaving 2 is what the malacha is. Okay, here comes the complicated part. If you do 2 batei mirim, okay, now there's a big debate about how to define these. I'm actually going to hold off right now. I'm going to get to it when we get to the Gemara in a few minutes, because the Gemara is going to try to explain what these are. It's still not going to be very clear, and I'll bring you some suggestions, but we'll hold off right now. Whether you do this on a loom, or benafa b'kvara ubesal, or when you're making a basket, or a sieve, or 2 different types of sieves, right? An afa and kvara, 2 different types of sieves, or a sal, or a basket. All those things have the same over-under, work weft, and therefore, so you're going to end up with, in these cases, you're going to be obligated also if you do, now here, when you make those utensils, you don't actually have a weaving loom, you're not using the same thing, and you don't actually have batei mirim or the kius, but it's what will be comparable there, and again, I haven't explained yet, we'll get there when we get there soon. So now when it comes to sewing, it's sewing 2 stitches or tearing in order to sew 2 stitches. Gemara starts off and says the first problem is going to be with Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer said if you weave 3 stitches. So now they say, Ki ata Rabbi Yitzchak tane shtayim. He says 2, it actually should be shnei, not shtayim. Grammatically, some people change it. In any case, he says 2 and not 3 in the beginning. So, ha'anan's not 3, but don't we say in the Mishnah 3? So how do you resolve that? Lo kashya, ha ba'alime, ha b'katine. Depends whether your strands are thick or thin. And now they're going to say, so which is which? Well, amrele l'hagisa v'amrele l'hagisa. Some people say thick is worse, and some people say thick is better. We'll see in a minute. Amrele l'hagisa. Alime, tlata lo satre, tre satre. If you have very thick strands, and you put 2 together, because they're thick, they don't cling together so well. So 2 you're not going to be obligated because they're going to fall apart. Whereas if you have thin strings, katine, treinami lo satre. If they're thin, then 2 will actually hold together well. So that's the first explanation. The 3, when we said 3, we meant 3 thick strings. Then you need 3 in order to be obligated. If you say thin strings, it'll be 2. Some people say the exact opposite. It's not an issue of are they going to be stick together? Is it going to be something noticeable? If you take these thin strands, they're not going to be very noticeable, 2 of them, and therefore you're not going to be obligated for 2. You'll only be obligated for 3. But alime, if they're thick, treinami yedie, 2 will already be recognizable, and therefore thick strings you're already going to be obligated for 2. Next. Tanya, ha'oreg shlosha chutim b'tchila ve'echad al ha'arig chayav. We're going to quote a Braita now. If you do 3 in the beginning or 1 on already established, you're obligated. Soon the Gemara is going to say, obviously, this opinion must be Rabbi Eliezer. V'chachamim omrim bein b'tchila bein b'sof shiuran shnei chutim. So far, exactly the same as our Mishnah. Always 2 strings. U'b'safa, but now we're adding, if it's on the rim of the beged, right, not the cloth itself, but there's a rim around it, then already it's going to be different. בשפה שני חוטים, 2 חוטים ברוחב 3 בתי נירים. Instead of the rochav that we're going to see later is melo hasit, which is the amount from, if you extend your thumb and your forefinger and you stretch them out, melo hasit is from the thumb to the tip, from the tip of the thumb to the tip of the second finger, your index finger. So that's normally, but when it comes to the safa, it's going to be 2 chutim with a width of, that you basically strand it through, even if it's just 3 batei nirim, which means 3 batei nirim are basically the 3 setups of 3 strands of the woof. So if you put the weft in and you thread it through 3 strands, basically, you're going to be obligated. You take 2 strings and go in. What would this be usable for? Theoretically, you could take a small belt and it would be that thickness, and therefore that's what we're talking about, that size. Next, now they go back to the first line. As I said, they're going to say, this is Rabbi Eliezer. Tanya Idach, another braita. If you do 2 strings on the gas, which means on a, okay, again, different interpretations, but we'll go with one, on a big piece, okay, gasa is always big, on a big piece, or ala imra, and an imra is the sfat habeged, the rim of the cloth, okay, either way, chayav. It's 2 strands that are important, 2 strings. Rabbi Eliezer omer afilu echad, even if it's 1, ubasafah shnei chutim berochav shlosha batei nirim chayav. He says 1 on the beged is enough, or 2 on the rim with a width of 3 batei nirim. Halamaze domer. So again, the Braita says the same thing. La'oreg tziltzul katan shnei chutim berochav shlosha batei nirim. Now they go back to the first line. The Tanakami here, who does this match? This Braita, the stam is the rabbis. So in the first Braita, the unattributed opinion was Rabbi Eliezer. In this Braita, it's the rabbis. Okay, now we get to our osesh de batei nirim. My banirim, okay, because it says if you do 2 batei nirim on the nirim or on the kiras. So what is this? My banirim, Amar Abaye. Now, he says something very strange, because you think it's 2, but what does he say? Tarte bebatei nira, bechada benira. It's putting 2 strands on the batei nirim and 1 on the nir. There's a big debate among the rabbis. What's the batei nir and what's the nir? Why is he adding? Okay, I don't have a good explanation. There has to be 2 on there and 1 on there. Not so clear. So what could this be? So some people say the batei nir there's the koved elyon and the koved tachton. If you remember, the way the weaving loom works is when you put your shuttle through, then you use the pedals and you switch back between, there's the strands of the sheti, the woof go in 2, there's 2 sets of them. One that goes higher, one that goes lower, and then you can always move them back and forth, and that's how you do the weaving. Those on the Zoom, Julie's here with her weaving loom. If you want, you can show us. Julie, you want to add for a minute? 1 second, I'll unmute you. 1
second. Okay, can you see this?
Talk a little louder, Julie.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, talk loud though.
Okay, can you see the weaving loom in the picture at all, or no?
We see it.
Oh, okay, so can I see it? So you have the top bar here and the bottom bar, wait, oh yeah. And the bottom bar is here, and all these loops they're talking about are being tied up, and these are the heddle rods that you move, you have to lift and lower them. And here's the shuttle going through with the thread.
Just 1 sec. Go.
Oh, so there were some looms where you would wrap the string around, and there were some where you would actually have holes in the top bar, and you would stick the strings through the holes, actually tie them into the bar, into the loom. And I'll send some photos. I can post them later on my site, my log.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay, so explain the batei nirim and the nirim according to this. Julie, you there?
Well, I think in the bar, you don't need to tie a loop. You just you thread the thread through a hole in the top bar. And in some cases, you would tie a loop and then put the thread through the loop itself. That's what I think. And I read the Quran too. But it may be just 2 different kinds of looms.
Great, thank you. Okay, So there you have the explanations of them. Again, there's all different explanations because I think that different people had different weaving looms. And because of that, they viewed the definitions of these in different ways because they were using the reality of what they had in front of them. And as Julie said, there were many different kinds of looms. For example, her loom doesn't look doesn't have all those same parts. So it's a little bit confusing. Okay, Bekirus, my Bekirus, Amarav Mitsuvita. Okay, Rashi explains that that's the part that's by the foot pedal that kind of controls, or I don't know exactly which part, but Yuriat Gardin Ha'orgim Baregelhu, right? They would use their foot. V'hi bimkom akaneh ha'oleh v'yoreh b'yiriat harigat nashim shekorim frisha. The part that goes up and down on the loom that controls the pedals. That's how I understand it. Okay, now we're moving on. Hatofer shtei tefirot. Hatanina ba'avot melachot. So the first question they ask is, we already said this when it came to the avot melachot. We already said that we have hakoreh amanat litfor shtei tefirot. Kataninami hatofer. Sorry, I just skipped. Okay, so what do they answer? Mishum tekabayla mitnei seifa va'koreh amanat litfor shtei tefirot. Because it says later, you're going to tear in order, because they want to say to tear in order to sew to. Therefore, it also says here to sew to. But then they say, no, but litfor shtei tefirot kataninami. It also says there, hatofer va'koreh hanami tanina. One second, sorry, I read this wrong. Because it wanted to say in the end, hakoreh amanat litfor shtei tefirot kataninami hatofer va'koreh. That's why it said here, hatofer va'koreh. But then they say hanami tanina b'avot melachot. That was also listed in the avot melachot. The koreh amanat litfor shtei tefirot was already mentioned there. So what do they answer? Ela mishum dekabayla mitnei seifa hakoreh b'chamato va'almeito mishum hachi katane hatofer shtei tefirot. Because they wanted to get to the next Mishnah, this was just the intro to the next Mishnah, which we're going to see in a minute. So therefore, that's why it said this here. What's the case of someone would tear something in order to sew two stitches? Why would you have to tear? You would just undo the tefirot. You wouldn't necessarily tear the cloth. If you sewed improperly and you ended up with a bit of sticking out, right? Imagine like a little pocket forms when you sew too much material, then you'd actually have to tear that material in order to restitch it and to fix it up. Okay, the new Mishnah. Now we get to a really interesting, and we get into a lot of psychology in this daf, in this part of the daf, and some very, very, very interesting things, some disturbing things, I should say. What do they write on Facebook? Trigger alert, right? This is something you're going to read, something you're not going to be so happy about. So hold off till we get there. But we start a really interesting topic here. Hakoreh b'chamato va'almeito. What if you tear, right? We know we tear kriya when someone dies. So what if you tear either because someone died and you did that on Shabbat, or you tore out of anger? Okay, this is why we're going to get into psychology and people with their tempers and angry. What if you tear out of that? V'kol ha'mekalkalim, and anyone who does a destructive act, these are basically considered destructive acts, are pturim. Okay, you're not obligated. V'hamekalkel amanat l'taken shiuro k'mitaken. If you destroy something in order to fix it, that's where we talked about sotel, breaking in order to build, or korea, you tear in order to stitch. So if you do it that way, then what's the requisite amount? It's always going to be shiuro k'mitaken, right? Erasing in order to write two letters. Remember, it's all the same requisite amount. Now we get into some requisite amounts. Shiur hamelaben for laundering, haminapetz for combing out the wool before you spin it, hatzoveh for coloring, or for hatoveh for weaving. What's the amount? Kimalo rachaf hasit kaful. This amount from the finger, from the thumb to the index finger, doubled. B'ha'orek shnei chutim shiro kimalo hasit. When it comes to weaving, it's only one of that amount. Uleminhu. Now we get back to the tearing. The Gemara starts off with a big contradiction. Uleminu, hakorea b'chamato, ube'avlo, va'al meito chayav, va'af al pi shemechalel et haShabbat yatsa yidei kriya. Two fascinating things. Number one, if you tear out of anger, or you tear because of someone who died, you're obligated. Okay, let's start with the person who died. Why are you obligated? First of all, the Mishnah said you're not obligated, because the Mishnah said these are destructive acts. There's nothing productive about them. But think about it. When you tear kriya for a mate, for your dead person, there's actually a purpose to it. Right? You're doing it and maybe it helps you to feel better or it provides you with something. So that's a positive act, and you're obligated according to the Braita. And what about in your anger? Think about it. Sometimes when you tear something, when you're really angry, you actually are doing something that helps you, right? It's from a psychological perspective, you're getting out your anger. So that's something helpful and useful. So therefore, you're going to be obligated. Now, here comes the second interesting point. So if the first point is they view these as productive acts, okay, which is interesting in and of itself. Now, this is obviously a contradiction to our Mishnah. First of all, the easy answer could be these were two approaches, two different approaches. One viewed these as purely destructive acts, and one viewed them as productive acts. That could definitely be. It's not the Gemara's approach, but it could be. The Gemara then talks about, even though you're Mechalel Shabbat by doing this, you're actually Yotzei Yedei Kriya. The Yerushalmi says, isn't this a mitzvah ba'ava avera? Right? You tore Kriya on Shabbat, you're doing a mitzvah, so to speak. It's not exactly a mitzvah, but it is a mitzvah, let's say by rabbinic law, but you did it on Shabbat. So they make some distinctions. It's not the same as, let's say, stealing a lulav and using it, which is the classic case, because one explanation is you didn't actually do anything to the object, right? It's the lulav you stole. Here you didn't steal it, or you tore something, but it's the act of tearing, which is problematic, not so much what you did to the cloth. That's not what's important to us. That's one possible way of reading it. There's some other explanations, but we'll leave it at that. In any case, you could be Yotzei. So now what are they basically saying? Since you're Yotzei, Chovat Kri'ah, you've done something of significance, and therefore you're obligated on Shabbat. And then we're going to have to deal with the anger issue later. So the Gemara says, Lo Kashya, first we're going to deal just with the dead person tearing Kriya. Ha b'meit didei, ha b'meit alma. If you do it for one of your own relatives that you're supposed to tear Kriya on, then you're obligated because you did something productive. If you did it for somebody else, you're not. They say that doesn't work though. V'ha meito katani. The Mishnah said, hakorea al meito. Meito means you're dead, meaning one of your relatives. So what do they answer? La'alam b'meit didei. Fine, it has to be one of your relatives, but there's a difference between relatives. So b'hanach delab b'nei avelut inu. The Mishnah must have been talking about someone that wasn't part of your 7 closest relatives that you're supposed to tear Kriya for. You did it for a more distant relative, and therefore you're not obligated because we don't view that as productive. But if you did it for one of your own, then it would be productive action. Now they say, V'ichachamu, once you're talking about Kriya, they're now telling us if he was a Talmid Chacham, Chiyuve Mechayev. Okay, you'd be obligated to tear Kriya, Detanya, or you'd also be obligated on Shabbat if you tore for a Chacham, because it says, Chacham Shemet, Hakol Krovav. Everybody is his relative. They say, what do you mean Hakol Krovav? Everybody's the relative of a Chacham. Salkadatach, does that make any sense? Ela Ema Hakol Krovav. Everyone is considered like his relative. Hakol Korin Alav, Hakol Chotzin Alav, Hakol Mavrin Alav Berechava. There's 3 things you're supposed to do. If a Chacham dies, you're supposed to tear Kriya for him. You're supposed to Chotzin. They would somehow tear until their shoulder and reveal part of their shoulder. And Hakol Mavrin Alav Berechava. They would eat the Sudat Havra'ah, the Sudat you eat after the burial, in the Rechava, in a public space. Everyone would eat it together. So what do you see? So therefore, lo tzricha delav chachamu. You'd have to say our Mishnah is when he's not a chacham, not your relative, and not a chacham. We're already limiting it to a bunch more cases. Then they say, what do you mean though? V'yadam kasher u'chiyuv v'mechayev. But what about if he was an adam kasher? Detanya mipnei ma metim. Now we're going to say it sounds like you have to tear kriya on anyone who's a good person. And here's the trigger alert. Okay, this is the line you're not going to want to read. Mipnei ma metim banav u'bnotav shel adam kshem ktanim. Okay, as if they have the answer. Why would someone's children die when they're young? The whole reason is to teach you, okay, this is an interesting theory, that if you lose your children when they're young, then you will have a lot more sympathy or empathy for other people, and empathy would be the better word, so that you'll, in the future, you'll understand what it means to lose someone else. Now, the Gemara says, wait a minute, so that in the future, you'll have more empathy. We're going to punish you now and make your children die now. We're going to take some collateral from you just so that hopefully in the future, we want to make you a better person or, do things more in the proper way. The reason is because you didn't cry and you didn't do this and you weren't crying and have a belut for a good person. Therefore, your children died young. Now, obviously, the big question becomes 2 big questions. Number one, who are we to say that we know why people's children would die young, right? We certainly don't know the answer to that. The rabbis didn't know the answer to that either. And number 2, don't we have this concept that lo yumtu avot abanim v'lo banim al avot, right? We only die for our own sins, not for other people's sins. Why would we be punishing the children for their parents' sins? So again, whenever we get to these, I think the Gemara is not really talking about actually why this is. The Gemara is using this as a way to say this is a really serious issue. And maybe because people weren't taking it so seriously, you would think this was such a serious issue. They're saying, no, this is quite serious. You have to take very seriously when someone else is in Avilut. Right? We all know that there's people who are very careful to go to as many Shiva calls as they can. And, they're always, if there's a Shiva call, I'm going there, right? It's just important to show up and to be there and to show your empathy for the family. And this is what it's saying. This is a central, important value. And therefore, they frame it in, well, if you don't do this, your kids will die young, because they know that will scare people. This is their scare tactic. But not that they're saying that we know the reason why this happens. So that's how I understand this sugya. And now they say, Shekol haboche al adam kasher, and now they're going to word it in the positive, which you would have hoped they had done in the beginning, instead of saying it in the negative. Your children will die, but anyone who does this, mochalilo al kol avonotav. If you cry for a good person who died, then you will be pardoned for all of your sins. Bishvil kavod sha'asa, because of the respect you gave. This is actually I was talking more about the family. This is talking more about the respect you gave to the dead person. You will be absolved of all your sins. So back to our Mishnah. Hakolea al meito sounds like even if it's not your own, it's just an adam kasher. You should be obligated because you've done something significant, and therefore it's a positive act and not a negative. So lo tzricha delav adam kasherhu. You'd have to say it's talking about someone who's not a good person. Okay, obviously, who's to define what's an adam kasher, what's not an adam kasher? Go figure that one out. Now we're going to say even if it's not an adam kasher, if you happen to be there when the person dies, you're actually chayav to tear kriya if you're there when you see a person die. Ditanya, how do we know this? It says in the Braita, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar omer, ha'omer al hamet b'shat yitziat neshama. If you're standing there when someone dies, chayav likroa. Ha'lemazet omer, they bring a beautiful image. It's like l'sefer Torah shenislefa. It's like seeing a burning sefer Torah. That's like seeing a person die, and you have to tear kriya. So, lo tzricha de lo kai b'shat yitziat neshama. We're now limiting the Mishnah even more. It's talking about it wasn't even an adam kasher, and you weren't there when at the moment they died. Okay, we've resolved that issue, even though we've now narrowed it to such a narrow case. Again, I think you can look at it as there were two different approaches, but the Gemara always likes to kind of take all these sources and say, must have been all one and the same. Now they say, what about the anger? Now we get into the interesting psychology of anger. So now they say, Tinach meito. Okay, we resolved that issue. Ela chamato chamato kasha. But again, you tear out of anger, are you obligated, not obligated? Right? Machloka between the Mishnah and the Braita. Chamato nami lo kasha. Harabi Yehuda, Harabi Shimon. Now they say, this is two different opinions. Well, what different opinions? Harabi Yehuda damar, malacha she'ena tzricha legufa chayav aleh. It's a malacha that you're not doing for the purpose of the malacha, right? Normally, kolea is in order to sew. Here you're doing kriya for a positive reason, but not for the purpose that it was done in the Mishnah. So, in the Mishkan. So, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're going to be chayav anyway, mitoraita, because he doesn't think there's any exemption. And Rabbi Shimon says, you can't do it, but you're not obligated by Torah law, and that would be the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says patur, the Braita is Rabbi Yehuda, who says chayav. So now they say, wait a minute, that can't be. But Rabbi Yehuda only said that when it came to fixing something, a positive act. This is a negative act. This is purely destructive. Right? When you throw something out of anger, you think about all those movies when they throw the dishes at apropos all this issue of alimut talked about now lately, right? I mean, all the time they talk about it, but all this violence in house, domestic violence, and the husband gets angry, he throws the plates all over the floor out of anger. That's mekalkel. Rabbi Yehuda is not b'chayav on mekalkel. Malachat she'en tzricha legufa is not done for the same purpose, but it's done for productive purpose. This is not productive. So here we have the fascinating line, Amar Rabbi Avin, Hai Nami Mitakenhu. This is Mitaken. Why? He's calming down his evil inclination, right? In our words, he's calming his temper by doing it. So, is this really allowed? Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar omer mishum chilfa bar ikra, shamar mishum Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. If you tear your clothes out of anger, if you break dishes out of anger, if you throw your money out of anger, you're like an idol worshiper. Why? Because this is the way the Yetzer Hara works. Hayom omer lo aseh kach. Today I'll tell you do this, and if you give in to your evil inclination, you let your temper have the best of you. Ulemachar omer lo aseh kach. Tomorrow we'll push you to do something else. Ad she'omar lo avodah v'avodah zarah v'holech v'oved. In the end, you're going to end up listening to your yetzer hara, giving into your evil inclination. Basically, this is all about self-control. You'll clearly have no self-control, and you'll end up worshiping idols. Am Rabbi Avin, why kra'ah? Where do we get this from? A pasuk. Lo yebecha el zar v'lo tishtachave la'el necha. There shouldn't be any strange gods among you, and you shouldn't bow down to a strange god. So why does it say el zar and el necha? Ezehu el zav. What would be an elzar in your body? Okay, this would be the yetzer hara. So how could this be then? So it must not be that you threw these out of anger because you had a temper and you couldn't control yourself, because nobody views that as a positive act. Okay, there was thought to think maybe this is positive. No, this is not a good thing. You wanted to put the fear of God into your house, okay, or fear of you, whatever it was, some fear into your house, meaning you broke something just for effect. You weren't in a moment of anger and you couldn't control yourself. You had perfect control. And you decided to throw something to get people to wake up. So what'd you do? Here we have some examples of rabbis who did this, but you'll see that the way they threw things or broke things was not exactly regular. He took out the edge, we talked about the sfat habeged, the ring. He took out a few strands from the edge of the cloth, which isn't so destructive. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Tavar Manishviri, he broke broken kelim. They were already broken. He broke them more. Rav Sheshet Rami Le'amte Munina Aresha. This is a little unpleasant. He put the fish juice on the fish brine on the head of his maidservant. Rabbi Amma Tavar Nechtama, he broke the cover of a jug. Okay, so they did some act in a way. It was done to kind of scare people, but not in a destructive and not in a right. So this is productive, and that's what it must be talking about. I'm Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. Now we're going back to the Avelut issue. We'll end with some issues about this. I'm Rabbi Shimon ben Levi, Mishum bar Kapara. Kol hamorid dma'ot shel al adam kasher. If you cry over a good person who died, Hakadosh Baruch Hu sofranu menicham bebekin hazav. He counts them up and he puts them in his treasure chest. All your tears, and he remembers that you did this. Shneimar nudi safarta. Okay, this comes from, it's a pasuk in Tehillim, but in Eov it talks about lanudlo ulenechamo, to go and to make someone comfort someone. So nudi has to do with avelut. Safarta, so all your comforting, God counted. Ata sima dimati benotcha, catch my tears in your flask. Halo b'sifratcha. Okay, that's the pasuk. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amarav, kol hametatzel be'espeido shel chacham. If you don't do a hesped for a wise person, ra'oi lekavro b'chayav. You should be buried in your lifetime. Shene'emar. Now they're going to point out that when Yoshua dies, when Moshe and Aaron died, it says that everybody did a hesped for them. When they die, it doesn't say anything. When Yoshua dies, it doesn't say that. So it says, so the first thing they notice is it doesn't say that. Then it says, mitzvon lahar gash. They tell you it's north of this har gash. So why did they mention this har gash? The har got up and almost wanted to kill the people. Sounds like kafaleim har gigigit, right? The mountain wanted to kill them because they didn't do a hesped for him. Amar b'chia bar Abba, Amar b'Yochanan, kol hametatzel be'hespedo shel chacham eino ma'arich yamim. Midah keneged midah, shneimar b'sasah b'shalcha tirivena. Sasah, they learn is se'ah b'se'ah, tit for tat. Okay, so basically, they didn't have a long life because they didn't do this. So now they say, what do you mean they didn't live a long life? It says in this Kenim who lived a long life after Yoshua. So how could you say they didn't live a long life and they got punished for this by shortening their lives? So Amarle Bavlai, he says to him, you Bavlai, what kind of a question? Yamim ha'erichu, shanim lo ha'erichu. Look at the words. Yamim, now often Yamim does mean years. They say, no, it means days. Ha'erichu Yamim means just days. They Dafka died early. So then he questions it back. He says, Ela me'ata, leman yiru yimechevi me'benechem. Here's a pasuk, we say it every day in Shema, that you have long life. Nobody ever thought that means I'll live long days. Obviously it means long life. So what do they answer? Bracha shani. There it's a blessing. When it comes to a blessing, yamim, we're going to extend it. We're going to see it means years. But when it comes to here, we're going to say that the yamim actually just meant days. Last line for today of Amar B'chia Bar Abba, Amar B'Yochanan, Echad min achim shemet, if one of the brothers dies, yidagu kol achim kulam. This is a sign that bad is coming to your house and you should worry that maybe you're going to die also. If one of your chevra dies, again, this is the way of the rabbis saying, we were looking for ways that people could be choser b'tshuva, and think about their lives. So they say, take this as a sign and get your act together. Not necessarily that was really going to happen. Now here we have a debate. Amrele demet gadol, amrele demet katan. There's a debate. Is it specifically the older one? Because the older one was always the leader of the pack. So if it's the older one, is that a sign? If the leader dies, wow, that's a bad sign for everybody. Or is it specifically the younger, because the younger is supposed to die last, theoretically. So if the younger one dies, that should be your sign that something's wrong. What they're basically saying is it's not necessarily every brother or every person in the pack who dies. It depends who it is. That should be your sign that you should get your act together. And maybe this was a way of them limiting it because they saw it wasn't necessarily true. So they wanted to maybe say, oh, well, don't think this isn't true at all. Maybe it's in unique circumstances. Okay, with that, we end this whole section. And we're going to start tomorrow, not the whole section, but the issue of the psychology of it and the anger and the dead and how important it is to litabel alamet and laspid. Tomorrow we're going to move to kol mekalkalim pturim, this idea of if you're mekalkel, you're patur, which fits in with the whole melechet machshev. Okay, we'll pick up with there tomorrow in tomorrow's daf. Not tomorrow together, but in tomorrow's daf.